Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ dhammāṃ saṅghāṃ namassāmi. So I was just contemplating recently about how the Buddhist teachings have been around for over 2,500 years, and during that time it's been elaborated, proliferated in many different forms. In fact, sometimes it's been elaborated in such forms that is sometimes hardly recognizable as the Buddhist teachings, the core Buddhist teachings, mostly because it's been filtered through cultures, different cultures around the world, and in the process, it's very easy to lose sight of the real purpose of the Buddhist teachings. We get sidetracked into all the expressions of it, which is quite normal. I think most of us probably have come to the Buddhist teachings by, picking up some kind of form of it, some elaboration of it. We recognize, we recognize the usefulness of the teaching of impermanence, or maybe unsatisfactoriness or something, or maybe we're inspired by enlightenment. Anybody inspired by enlightenment? It sounds a bit abstract, far away, but but like I say, that sometimes it gets so elaborated that we lose sight of the real purpose of the Buddhist teaching. So I would say my interpretation is that the ultimate purpose of the Buddhist teachings is to guide us towards an experience of selflessness, or an experience beyond the self. And actually I believe this is the purpose of all religions. All religions to guide people beyond themselves to a wider reality. But different religions have different ways of explaining it. The theistic religions would explain it as God or something, experiencing God. And maybe the more other, like non-theistic ones, like Buddhism, don't talk about God, but in a very more psychological sense. The experience of no permanent self, Anatta. But if you keep that as the focus, and then around it, the rest of the Buddhist teachings are helpful hints. They're tools to use, skillful means to use to realize that. And, if we recognize that, perhaps we get it in the right perspective, rather than us practicing to, perfect our concentration, for example. And the point is, the concentration supports the experience of selflessness. If you can calm the mind down, calm down a lot of the conceptual thought, busy mind, which we often identify with as being myself, if you can calm that down a little bit, there's a possibility to realize something beyond that. When our own busy mind quietens down, what's behind it? One of my experiences was that I believed that thinking was my true self. That's why I went to university. I had to develop my true self in all of its forms, and hopefully get a good job and make lots of money, and so I could express my true self in other ways. Enjoyment, having fun, me enjoying life. But when it was kind of a simplistic view, because thinking isn't always wonderful. Sometimes the thinking just took off by itself and went in different ways I didn't really like. Not just like self-doubt or or fear or something or other, mind just took off. And wait, hold it, don't think about that, but no control over it. So, as I say, in for example, in universities, they encourage people to think a lot. They encourage people to turn on their thinking process, but they don't tell you how to turn it off. So, sometimes it just gets away with you. Takes you off somewhere else. Yeah, totally different place. Sometimes some really horrible places. But if we understand the purpose of the Buddhist teachings, to realize some degree of selflessness, maybe it's too high-minded or something other, but at least more unselfishness or less selfishness. Then, right, that's what the purpose. So then you can see how all the Buddhist teachings kind of line up with that. Keeping the precepts. Being able to keep the precepts requires quite a bit of selflessness, doesn't it? One has to let go of one's own impulses and desires and wants and wishes, and I want to do that. I see some beautiful thing and I want it. Oh, no, that's stealing. Okay, to give that up. Takes some self-discipline, takes some self-sacrifice. As I say, just in general, that by following the unskillful states of mind, it increases our ego. We're following our desires, our wishes, our wants, or whatever, just to please ourselves. But if we resist that, go against them, and then it requires some self-sacrifice. It lightens the self. It lets go of the self. It broadens the self. It helps to learn about letting go of the selfish impulses. And even, like people hear about nowadays, people hear about mindfulness, for example, and they think, mindfulness. Where I was recently, lots of books in the library about mindfulness. Mindfulness and better relationships, mindfulness and happiness, of course. Mindfulness, even more efficient in your job. So people get really, really caught up with mindfulness. But actually, the reason why you can have better relationships, you can be better at work, you can be, what was the third one? Be happier. The reason is because you're more selfless. The more selfless you can be, or the less selfish you can be, the happier you are. It isn't mindfulness, it's the unselfishness that makes you happy. Mindfulness is just a tool to use. When we develop, like I mentioned before, about how by developing mindfulness, attentiveness to the present moment, to what's going on in the present moment, we are less subjective. We're more objective. Rather than thinking about ourselves, if we're more mindful about the sensations of the body, that's just what's happening. If we go too far and say, this is happening in my body, that's not real mindfulness. That's that mindfulness plus, self-referencing. So it's too far. But in developing real mindfulness, attentiveness, just plain pure attentiveness, is just this sensation. There's it goes beyond the sense of a self who has this sensation of this body. It just is aware of sensation, is aware of feeling. It's happening to us. Not my feeling, just happening. As part of the body-mind processes. States of mind just arise because of cause and effect. I didn't make them, many of them. I didn't make up these states of mind, most of them. A few I did, but I accept responsibility. But most just popped into my brain, This brain. See, my brain. Especially if it's a stupid thought, it's definitely not my brain. But if you understand, though, that principle that the Buddhist teachings is to try to lead us towards selflessness or unselfishness or less selfishness, then you can look around in your life and see, a bit more, you can say, practically, just what are those factors that lead to that. Generosity, kindness. And if you don't really You don't really get it. You're not very creative about how to be selfless or unselfish. I mean, most of us are well trained to be selfish, right? Yeah, well trained. If your parents didn't do it, your teachers will do it, and society will do it. You need this, you need that. You need better, better complexion. You need to eat more. You need better health. You need more money. You need better clothes. You need it. You need it. But if you recognize what the purpose is, then you can look around and you say, if you're not so creative or curious, you can look in the Buddha's teachings. And the Buddha gives us a lot of details, a lot of skillful means to use. I was just trying to, in general, you can say in general, it's a bit more advanced, I guess, but I mean, besides, we all know about morality already and generosity, but when it comes down to a bit more, the inner work, then you can look at, for example, the sense processes, sense perception. How often, when we're perceiving something, then this thought of I comes up. I like it, I don't like it. I want it, I don't want it. Rather than just staying with the pure data of the sense perception, just seeing, just hearing, just smelling, just tasting, just touching, just mental activity going on. But invariably, if you aren't alert to it, this thought of I arises. Oh, I am hearing, and I'm hearing that nice sound, and I want that sound again. I want to keep it, or that sight, smell, taste, touch, thought. But if you recognize, oh, there we are, building a self again. There is self-making happening there. You recognize, oh, no, the purpose of the Buddhist teachings, to recognize the real truth of first of all, the well-being of selflessness, Nibbanang Paranang Sukham, Nibbana, which is the ultimate state of selflessness, ultimate happiness. But realizing just how peaceful your mind can be when it doesn't go into all these stories based around I. Just seeing, end the story. But seeing, oh, I see that, I like that, I want that. How can I get that? Blah, 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 blah. Goes on and on and on. Yeah. You say, oh, just seeing, oh, end the story. It's not a very long book, that one. In fact, my first book I wrote was all blank pages. Mainly because I couldn't write very well anyway, but I just realized that a lot of the insights that one had, you couldn't really put it in words. When I showed it to a school friend, this is my first book, and he looked at it, he was totally puzzled. Empty blank pages. Like, what do you mean? A book. He didn't get it at all. He wasn't so spiritually inclined, I guess. But the three general forms of go back to my theme, my general theme of I-making again. The three general themes are to do with perception, how the sense of I arises from perception. And you can say it's the identification. We identify, we grasp, we hold on to, we say, this is really mine. This body, this mind, this memories, whatever. And the third one is the views and opinions about it. We have views and opinions. Views and opinions, we perhaps don't recognize how these are so self-supporting. I believe this. I'm a Buddhist, so I believe in this. How reassuring is that, huh? You say, who are you? What's going on? The world is so confusing, but I'm a Buddhist. I know what I'm doing. Of course, I don't know what the Buddhist teachings is, but just identifying with being a Buddhist already gives you some sense of direction, gives you some sense of identity. You're like this. When I was going through the airport just the other day, and I was just going up to get into the airplane, and this lady was sitting in a chair, and she said, "Oh, what are you?" And I was really stumped. I guess you mean I'm a Buddhist. I mean, I guess because I look like this, I guess. What are you? I'm a human being. No. Can you see 2 arms and 2 legs, But I really stopped in my track, for a minute. She must mean, why do I wear this costume, in other words? Because I've identified with being a Buddhist, that's why. I wear this, I wear this identity flag here. It's not just that little pin up here saying, a little name tag saying I'm this, and maybe a little flag after it, Yeah, I got a big flag. But most people don't know this flag. They don't recognize this flag, you see. They recognize it's some kind of religious person, I guess. Maybe sometimes in the olden days, years ago, when I first came to the West, we got all kinds of derogatory comments about wearing this, It was after the movie Gandhi, we were called Gandhi, you see. Gandhi. I don't know why. And once I was waiting at a train station, and somebody on the other side calls across, he says, "Grasshopper." You know that one? Grasshopper.
Kung Fu movie.
Yes, it's a Kung Fu movie. That really confused me. Grasshopper. I'm not green. Apparently was it a movie or was it a whole series?
A whole series in the 70s.
That shows our age, doesn't it? It was before my time, so I didn't even know it. 70s, I was already in Thailand. Yeah. Monastery. So. It was a Kung Fu movie, apparently, and the master called his disciple Grasshopper. Something like that. So, that was probably maybe a little bit complimentary, maybe, or at least I didn't get attacked anyway. They thought I was a Kung Fu expert. If you recognize these 3 areas where, you say, self-making happens, and then perhaps we can identify, we can recognize where we have to be on guard. Like some people put a lot of attention into their views and opinions. This is my view about this. You define the person. I'm a lefty, or I'm a righty. I'm a Buddhist, or I'm another religion, or something other. Or still goes on about nationality. People still define as a certain nation, don't they? Nationalities. In fact, the Olympics is all based upon being from a certain country. See? But of course, all these countries are not very equal, are they? How many people in the Olympics come from Tuvalu? Huh? Tuvalu, little island in the Pacific, compared to people who come from China. How many competitors from China? Huh? Especially the Winter Olympics, not many people from Tuvalu, I tell you. It's a little island in the Pacific, never even sees snow, you see. So, I think once there was somebody in the Winter Olympics from Jamaica or somewhere. One person, it's the trained in England or Scotland or Norway or somewhere. But for some people, still nationality is very, very important. That's how, look at the wars that go on. Wars still happening. Well, some wars are nationalities, some are kind of territorial, some have to do with race, some have to do with religion, based upon people's identification. If you identify with a certain body of people, then you have an enemy, say. I'm this and they're that. But they're all human beings. You think in the 21st century, and there's so many pictures about the whole planet, the whole planet, the whole universe. We're all together on this one little planet, and you can't agree to cooperate in this little sphere here. Actually, it's so small nowadays, Before it's very difficult to travel before. But nowadays people can travel quite easily. You can hop on a plane and fly around the world in a couple of days. How many countries do you pass over? I traveled for quite a few years, and so I went to many different countries, and I didn't really make much of the races of people, and it was a bit confusing, of course, with the difference in languages. And more confusing with the changes in money and stuff. In those days, going through Europe, each country had their own money, own coinage. You see. So you go one country, and I got to change money, and then I had travelers' checks, so there were large denominations, and I hitchhiked through Belgium, in 8 hours, and I had all these Belgian, whatever they call them, francs or something left over, and you can't use it in France, you see. So what do I do with it? I don't change coins in the bank, But I did once when I arrived in Turkey one time, and I gave this Belgian coin to the waiter in this restaurant, and he gave me an extra cup of tea. He was so happy. He couldn't spend the money anywhere, but just to have a coin from a foreign country was really exotic in this little village. But if you see how much energy, how much emotional energy goes into defining ourselves as a certain religion or nationality or even country, why waste all that effort? Why waste all that effort to define yourself that way, to limit yourself? Now we can say, we just say we're citizens of the world, of planet Earth, and then I still have to get a passport, mind you. Or of course, the views and opinions, they also go, into other areas too. I mean, you hold on to your particular beliefs, like the politics, left wing, right wing, and even our views about details. How you look upon certain details of your life. You have the news or something, brother, and you can get into arguments about it, and it's just a different view. The place where I was last weekend, it was on top of a hill. And I was mentioning about views to people who were there on the weekend, Sunday workshop. And one side of the house, you look out to the Tasman Sea. The other side of the house, you look at the mountains. Okay? So are you going to argue about? You say, "Oh, this house overlooks the sea," and the person on the other side said, "No, the house overlooks the mountains." "No, it overlooks the sea." "No, the mountains." Just you come over here and look at this side, and I'll go over there and look at that side. He realizes it's just views. So many times people have a fixed view. It's really due not to viewing; it's due to blindness, limited perception. They're blind. They think they really see the right way. I have this view. I see it right. No, you don't. If you hold on to that view, you're showing your ignorance. You're showing how blind you are. Because all the views, they're just views, just perceptions. We have views, but it's holding on to them and defending them and trying to build a sense of a self around it, an identity around it. And the same with, of course, the identifying with various functions of the mind and body. I mean, it's more tricky because we do have a body and mind. And we have it for our whole life. So, it's like you're in it, but then you say, well, don't identify with it. So it's not a matter of rejecting it. When we're on saying, I'm not my body, I'm not my mind, and if you do that, then you get dissociated rather than disidentified. Because there is a body and there is a mind. But a matter of seeing them as processes. If you can see them as ongoing processes, what can you really hold on to? You can still say, oh, this is my body, but if you understand it, if you observe it with attentiveness, mindfulness, the nature of the body, it's changing all the time. So which aspect, which expression of body is really you? Of course, I'm still holding on to my 21-year-old body. Actually, I can't even remember anymore what it was like when I was 21. Too long ago, And then some days maybe I could say I'm not quite 21. Maybe I feel like 40. Maybe some days. Some days I feel like 100. So even though it's I can look at this so-called body But one day it feels like 40, next day it feels like 100. So it's really confusing. They just the changing processes of the body. Okay, today, if I feel like the sensations of the body feel like 100, okay, it's a rough day. I walk down the stairs more slowly, and better get out the heating balm to massage the muscles and dress warmly. Other days, if I feel the body feels only 40, then a whole change of perspective. Then different relationship then to this particular form, physical form. Then same with the memories. Memories are always changing. I mean, sometimes the mind is fairly clear, or you have quite a few memories coming up. Sometimes, just the other day, I was talking to somebody. We were monks together in Thailand, and we didn't quite argue, but we got into a little bit of a discussion about dates. That was that date. That was that date. I mean, this is back in 1978. Can you believe? I mean, there's cobwebs there still. But of course, we're entitled to have disagreements. That was 77 even 77, 76. That was 76. It was 77. And then finally, the monk, it's not worth worrying about. He just wear out more brain cells thinking about it. And then actually only occasionally you need to rely upon your memory, remembering certain events or something or other. I guess some people maybe they live a lot in their memories. They haven't got a lot of activity going on in their life at the present time. They're retired or something, and then they just sit there in the good old days. Up in the monastery in North England, we used to invite the farmer to come around sometime and have a meal with us because we're living alone, and we're afraid he wasn't going to eat very much, so we invited him to our lunch times to have a good meal, once a day. And then you start talking about the good old days. He talked about the good old days, when he was, because it was a very old farm. He wasn't there the whole time, but so it was built in the 11th century. This farmhouse, the big tower there, a peel tower they call it, built in the 1100s, no, 11th century. That's 1000s, isn't it? 1060 or something, yeah. 11th century. It was pretty old anyway, but it also has a little bit of a lurid history because in those days there were lots of tribes where, when the Scottish Highlanders, had a bad harvest or something, then they'd come down to the more wealthier southern part of England, like North England, to kill the people and eat the cattle. Basically, it'd be the marauding Scots, they call it. So it wasn't a very peaceful time, but and this farmer used to keep saying, "Oh, in the good old days, it used to be like that." But people were starving and they didn't have the access to medicines and hospitals and all that they had. So it's kind of ironic. You sort of say it with a tongue in cheek, In the good old days, they used to burn the farms down, and used to get chopped up with the sword, in the good old days. They weren't so good in the old days. But we have these functions of the mind, and body. We live with them, so it's very easy to just to assume they belong to us. We have to take responsibility for them as well, don't we? We have to feed the body, clothe the body, and so without having vigilance, without having this perspective from the Buddha's teachings to remind us, very easy to just fall into the ignorant belief. This is my body. Yes, this belongs to me. But then when it starts to break down and you don't have any control over it anymore, or less control over it, then this truth begins to dawn upon you. And we're always getting older. and sometimes we get sick, and if we still believe that this body is ours, and we start to break down, you're going to be disappointed. Maybe even more than that, you're going to be really traumatized. No, I before I could do that. I used to be able to do that. Yeah, but you can't anymore, right? Things are changing. But if you develop this quality of attentiveness, it begins the experiential wisdom arises. Oh yes, I've seen the change now. It takes a while to sink in, but I begin to not just intellectualize it. When you're reminded of it, oh yes, right, I'm getting older, right? But you begin to get a seep into your bones, and you realize it directly. You live from that perspective then. Oh yes, getting old, yes. The body is changing, constantly changing, and you can live with that. You can be open to it and receive it. There's less conflict, less struggle. We're forcing the body. We have this ideal of the body should be like this. Then you're resisting this nature. Not only is it delusion, but I mean it's also more painful. You're trying to resist how the body really is. You're fighting with it, fighting against it, rather than flowing with it. And you can flow with the nature of the body and the mind as they really are. Then where's the conflict? Where's the suffering then? Even though, we can say in a sense we don't like it. Who likes old age and sickness? And old age, it can have its positive effects because, I was out there with Brother Bryce making some, digging something, trying to make some drains, and I just, he's younger than me, so you do it. I'm too old for this. Old age has its benefits, has its excuses, right? But you have to be a little bit more, of course, a little bit more sensitive to that as well, because we forget about it. You forget about it for a little bit, and then you overdo it, and then you feel it for weeks afterwards. Not just a matter of thinking about it, but you actually feel it for weeks afterwards. I think likewise with the states of mind and aware of the states of mind, being aware of memories, feelings. These you begin to contemplate feelings more often. You recognize perhaps how much time we wasted chasing after pleasant feelings. You thought that was a meaning of life, chasing pleasant feelings around. I don't know how many times when I was a student, Friday night. Oh yes, time to go out and have a good time. How many times I came home feeling terrible. And they say, "This is fun." But of course, you just go along with the kind of standard belief system, the time, until you find out for yourself. This is not what I want. This is not the real answer. And many times, people go out to try and seek for pleasure. This is Saturday night tonight, isn't it? Saturday night. How many people are off chasing after pleasure tonight? And most of them can only do it when they are, are intoxicated. They don't find pleasure. They actually just don't experience the pain. That's all. They blot out the pain with drink or drugs or something, or distractions. And they think they're having fun. Really? Is that fun? Does it have to feel anything? Have your mind all fuzzy and just feel just in oblivion. I don't feel anything. That's my sense of happiness. Don't feel anything. Yeah. Poor excuse for happiness, isn't it? People never really have looked at, investigated, the nature of feeling. What is really pleasant feeling? Buddha points out, in the discourse on developing attentiveness, Be aware of, for example, the pleasant worldly feeling and spiritual pleasant feeling. Worldly feeling and spiritual feeling, pleasant feeling. Be aware of them. And then if you do give that as a certain reflection or contemplation, you recognize, oh, gee, actually the spiritual pleasant feeling is a little bit more subtle, more pleasant than the worldly so-called pleasant feeling. Can't deny it's there. There is worldly pleasant feeling, but you see how kind of heavy it is, how fleeting it is. You can say even how kind of coarse it is. To spiritual pleasant feeling. Okay, spiritual pleasant feeling sometimes can be a little bit elusive, because it is so subtle sometimes, but recognize, okay, but there is this possibility. There is that there. So which if I have a choice, which do I prefer? But if you don't even investigate that, the Buddha is pointing out to us, just look at it, study it. He's not telling us, you should be, pointing a finger at you, you should be chasing pleasant spiritual feeling, you should be doing that. No, just look at it. And you find out for yourself. But some people don't even recognize that there is that possibility. Like I met people who have had, say, for example, some kind of experience of selflessness. Usually it's sort of like they just kind of forget themselves, either in a very, very peaceful environment, or they feel very comfortable sometimes, and then the boundaries of self kind of dissolve away, but they don't know what it is. There was one woman who came to see me in England, and she had that experience when she was very young, and she didn't know what to do with it. She had that experience walking in the garden one day in this springtime, and it just kind of, her and the garden became one. And became very beautiful, butterflies and flowers, really amplified, and no sense of the self, no worries, no fears, And then gradually it faded away, and she thought, oh, gee, am I crazy or something? Had no context for it. And so when she asked me about it, I said, oh yeah, it's just one of those samadhi experiences, like we have all the time, At least it's always mentioned in the scriptures all the time anyway. Maybe we don't always have them, but and she was so relieved just to have a context for it, But if you don't have a context for it, people have had these experiences. I would even say that they've had those experiences, but don't recognize what they are, so they can't develop them, they can't increase them, they can't encourage them then. So some people have had these kind of experiences, but without having the context for it, they aren't able to develop it. It becomes maybe something which really frightens them, that they think they're losing their mind, or they're going a bit abnormal or something. Can really alienate them from spiritual practice, perhaps, rather than recognizing, oh, this is a valuable insight. It's something which you could find a context for, and then learn to cultivate and develop and experience this more often then. And if they know what it is, they have the context for it, then it become a valuable part of their life, and can even give them more encouragement to develop spiritual practice, which is the real purpose of the Buddha's teachings. Developing the spiritual practices to realize selflessness, the ultimate source of well-being, the ultimate source of happiness. So if we have that in mind, what the real purpose of the Buddha's teachings is, we can look around in our life and find ways to encourage it. Either formally, say with the Buddha's teachings, Sila, Samadhi, Panya, or just in everyday life situations. How to be less self-centered, less self-involved. This is not something that people hear about normally. Normally, the society encourages more self-involvement. You've got to help yourself and do things for yourself. Be self-motivated. Then it keeps encouraging the sense of self, and maybe people are so nowadays how many people are really happy. There was a survey done just recently by the UN, I think, and it pointed out just how many people in the world are so unhappy. And the most shocking part of it is the young people have become increasingly unhappy. Young people, they have all the things never before in the world have you had so many things, so much food available, so much comforts available to us, so much medical care available to us. And people are still unhappy. Is that really a wonderful sales thing for capitalism or something? Because they're looking out there for happiness. You do this to get that, you get more money, and then you're happy. You won't find it out there. It's all inside. Got to build your own happiness in your own heart. Work there. That's where you have to look. But we keep looking outside for all these things, and you're never going to find them out there. So you recognize, and then of course, again, the society's encouraging selfishness. Got to help yourself. The more you get, the better you are. But how many rich people are really happy? More. They find that some of the happiest countries in the world are countries that are poor, where people have to share their resources, limited resources, but they have to share them. A couple of the most happiest countries in the world, or most generous countries in the world, are the Buddhist countries, Theravada, because they have to feed all these monks. You see, so we're encouraging you to be generous, and then with that, selfless. A bit awkward for me to say that, but I'm here to help you be selfless. Give me more. No, not me. Just this body and mind, right? But understanding that principle, the main principle of Buddhist teachings, and hopefully you'll be able to look around us and find out ways to encourage selflessness. And if we had a little glimpse of that, we can realize just how peaceful that really is. How light and peaceful and spacious that really is. Selflessness. It's a great. It's not only an aspiration, but it is a possibility that the Buddha gives us, and that it's available to all of us if we put it into practice. Then, so wishing you the best in your practice, and hopefully you can realize that and see for yourself. Is that right? See for yourself. See for your not self.